Greatness shows up after you're tired. Let's say it one more time, man. Greatness shows up after you're tired, not when you're tired. And breakthroughs don't happen until you reach your breaking point. Been there many times, man, at that place I didn't want to go on, and I realized that strength can't develop until your strength is gone. You got to keep pushing, because character and courage is developed or lost when you decide to keep going or to give up. You see, that's the point. You got to stop, and you got to realize that's your breakthrough coming right there, because when others that are around you won't, you will be the one that goes ahead. Somebody has to step up and go a little bit farther. Is that somebody you? How many says that's me? I want to go a little farther.
Well, hello, and welcome.
Welcome.
Furthermore, my queen.
Welcome to another episode of Furthermore, where we are going to propagate hope, health, and freedom.
Yeah, we're really real live hope dealers, and we're just happy to be with you today, honestly. So want to thank you so much for joining us. We have some exciting, awesome, amazing things, education, inspiration, motivation today. So we're going to prepare that for just a moment. And man, sweetheart, this is a brand new show. We're just getting going with this. This is great.
Yes, we're so excited to be on this new set together. We're going to be introducing new guests. We're going to bring some fun things like insights to hot topics. We're going to bring truth and truth bombs.
Yeah, and we'll have some interaction with you, the audience, over the course of time. As we begin to develop this, just stay tuned for all the cool stuff, because I'm telling you, you will be absolutely blown away. Remember, we talked about when we first began this journey, those 3 life prisons. When you think about those 3 prisons, just understand that they are real. Remember, there's that thing called big church. We know that hope can defeat big church. We'll talk about that as we go on and clarify that. We remember that health really defeats big medicine, and we also know that freedom, oh my goodness, freedom, it triumphs over big government. But we are going to cover a very controversial, mysterious, and somewhat kind of crazy topic today, and it's the idea of, is this thing called long COVID real? What do you think, sweetheart?
Well, we know from medical practice that people do suffer this thing called long haul COVID. And we got to dive into the nuts and bolts of that to help people understand the reality of it.
So when you think about long haul COVID, I want you to think about how it affects people. And recently we come across a really cool little video that showed you a little bit about what somebody's experiencing when they had this thing called long haul COVID. So let's check that out right now.
Well, let's talk to one, Dr. Asad Khan. You've been suffering from long COVID. Just tell us about, well, first of all, the symptoms that you've had, but then also the treatment you've been getting.
Certainly. Thank you very much. So I acquired the illness on a respiratory COVID ward in November 2020. I developed unbearable skin rashes, memory loss, inflammation around the heart, bladder incontinence, and a disabling condition called POTS, which made it impossible to sit or stand due to nausea and dizziness. And by August, I was losing weight. I was lying in a darkened room with blindfolds and earplugs, and I honestly didn't care if I fell asleep and never woke up again. And I've had to be my own doctor, researcher, and advocate. And while some clinicians have empathized and believed, others have suggested that it would just get better with time, or it was psychological, or that they were waiting for research and they couldn't do anything in the interim. And despite my knowledge and my access, it's been a nightmare to get the right care. I can only imagine what it must be like for the average person.
Yeah, and it's been a nightmare for many people. The question is what's creating the nightmare? Well, there's several studies out there, and we just want to pull a few of them up for you right now so that you can kind of see what we've been seeing. And again, we're just going to offer you a really brief opinion of this. Long haul COVID falls only after vaccination. So, is that true or not? What do vaccinations do? Do they help? Do they not? Well, folks, the jury is still out. Now, again, just for us and our perspective, when you think about the two different types of long haul COVID, I know we talk about these long-term symptoms. You can kind of see that here on the screen, and you understand when there's severe COVID, we have this 50%, and we have this mild COVID, there's 10 to 30% of this long haul going on. But understand what these little characteristics here of fatigue, brain fog, and tissue damage, organ damage more severe. The question all becomes is what's creating these. Now, when you look at these trends over time, we can see the relationship between the probability of severity score based upon the initiation and maintaining of those severe symptoms. So we can see that the longer the severe symptoms stand around, the longer the symptoms stay around. Long haul COVID disease has a characteristic of a viral reservoir gone awry. Think about this as the body continued to create spike proteins and having to react to it over the course of time. If that was our military fighting from within all the time, it would wear itself out. And then certainly when you look at this idea of the different vaccines that are thrown into the mix between the Moderna, Pfizer, and any of the other ones out there, you can see the variety of the responses. The bottom line is, when you think about this, is there are multiple typical symptoms that are associated here. But my question for you, sweetheart, is are there other things we need to consider, such as the health of the person, their supplement status, their life status, their nutrition status, rest, stress, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. When we really look at an individual's status, that lifestyle is usually disheveled. They don't sleep well. They're oftentimes handling stress with habits that aren't necessarily good for them, drinking, drugging, overeating. Yes, that standard American diet, that is at the root of 85% of long-term issues. And of course, if we're not getting the nutrients that we need, remember cellular function, especially even mitochondrial function, that which makes energy for you, is absolutely dependent upon nutrients. B vitamins, manganese, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, and the list goes on. And somebody who is not following a healthy lifestyle, boy, those cells are compromised. Recovery is compromised. Health is compromised. Hence, more severe symptoms of COVID. And then, of course, we have to look at the genetics of the person, too. That always plays a role in how easily and sufficiently someone can get past a dis-ease.
And all of that said, the question that we pose is long haul COVID real? Well, I suppose it is real, but the reality is there's so many different factors involved. It's worthy of more investigation. So there you go, a little investigation on our own. Now, when we get back, we're going to have a little word after this break from our wonderful, awesome financial advisor who's really going to give us a key to getting out of financial prison. That's Kirk Elliott when we get back.
And when you navigate through these economies with people, here's what happens. We want to hold their hand through it, let them know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge. Because a lot of times when you're struck with fear does two things. Number one, it can paralyze, and people just put their head in the sand and say, I'm just going to forget about it and hopefully it gets better. Or it causes you to make a wrong decision. And this is why we are here, is to help people navigate through the political quagmire nonsense that's going on, the economic malaise, and the absolute collapse that we're seeing. And when our freedoms are eroding, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our religious freedoms, our health freedoms, they're all tied together. But you know what doesn't need to erode with that? Our finances.
KirkElliottPhD.com/Sherwood.
Now, recently, I was able to sit down and spend some time with Kirk, and he was so enlightening and so refreshing and so encouraging in the middle of the collapse, as you hear about in that commercial. What are we going to do? Let's check out what Kirk had to say.
Inflation. Let's talk about inflation. And this, we could do numerous shows on inflation, so I'm just going to touch on it, right? But the core CPI says inflation's at 8.5%. Okay, since Biden came into office, gas has doubled at the pumps, groceries have doubled. Let's see, what else has gone up? The price of a used car is up 40%. Coal, steel, iron, copper, everything is up, right? So college education is up, health costs are, everything's up. So does anybody actually believe that it's 8.5%? I'll tell you who doesn't. My wallet doesn't believe that it's 8.5%. So there's a guy by the name of Dr. John Williams of shadowstats.com. I get a lot of my data from him. His algorithm says inflation is truly 17% when they say it's 8.5%. This is exactly what I did my dissertation on when I developed a new methodology for measuring inflation. But mine is at 8.5%, says it's 24.8. You basically multiply it times 2.8. So whether it's 17% or 25%, it's not 8.5, right? This is a problem when people are living hand to mouth in America, right? And they're living at the margin and they can't afford to eat or pay rent. They have to make these hard decisions, right? So we've got inflation that's persisting. Here's where real estate. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but in Denver, where I am, real estate has been booming for 10 years. House would go on the market, 24 hours later, it would be sold at a price higher than the asking price. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But now things have changed. Over the last 5 months, number of new mortgage applications is down 5 months in a row. The number of houses for sale, this is crazy. So remember, people were paying more than the asking price for houses. Over the last month, this has completely changed. 20% of the houses for sale are now reducing their prices because they're not selling. Well, this is what happens when interest rates go up 4 months in a row, 25, quarter of a point, half a point, 3/4 of a point, 3/4 of a point, right? We've only had 4 of them. The Fed at the end of last year said we were going to have 8 to 10 rate increases in a row. We're not even half done. And it's already decimating the real estate market, right? So here's where this one hurts me as a human. There's big companies in America. Big companies a lot of times have really big benefits, right? So companies will give loans now for groceries. Loans for groceries, right? And so some big companies that were surveyed who give loans for groceries, the amount of people asking for short-term loans to buy groceries has doubled. What should investors do? So you add all of this together and it's like, Mark, the economy in the near and intermediate future is not going to be good. Between now and the election, I think that you'll see chaos. I think you'll see upheaval. I think you'll see all kinds of corrective actions. I think the markets are on the verge of continuing the collapse. Stock market's already down over 30% year to date, only a little bit halfway through the year. So what can we do? So there's always a solution, right? In every crisis, there's an opportunity. What causes stocks and bonds and mutual funds to come down are inflationary pressures, increasing interest rates because that makes the cost of borrowing go up, political chaos, geopolitical conflict, unsustainable debt. All of that causes stocks, bonds, mutual funds to come down. Oddly enough, every one of those fundamental factors causes gold and silver to go up. So here we are. It's like when what worked in the past isn't working in the present, right? Stocks used to be really good, but they're not right now because fundamentally things have changed. The cool thing is that those exact fundamentals cause gold and silver to go up. So here's where you can invest with confidence. Go into tangible assets like gold and silver. They will be your inoculation, so to speak, against the sick economy, right? Because they thrive, they grow. And so when we weren't created to just survive, we were created to thrive. How do you do it? By navigating through this economy with wisdom and doing the right thing at the right time. We can help people with that. We can help them get into physical gold and silver. I'm not talking about paper, no ETFs, no mutual funds, no mining shares, no stocks. I'm talking about 1,000-ounce bars of silver, 100-ounce bars of silver, gold American Eagles, right? Physical, tangible assets that you would take delivery of. That is how you protect yourself in an inflationary world and watch your portfolio do well while the foundations around us seem to be crumbling. This should put a smile on everybody's face. But to get that smile, you need to act, right? That's what you need to do.
Well, I appreciate that. And as you all know now, my wife and I, we've taken his advice. We are doing that. And I don't have a frown on my face every time I hear these reports, even though when he was saying that, I was like, oh my God, is it really that bad? So, Kirk, I'm encouraging people right now, our listeners, to get a hold of you right now. There's two ways. Talk about the website and then the number.
Yeah, so the website, we have a simple form. And I actually want to tell people what to expect, right? So we have a form, kirkelliottphd.com/Sherwood, because that lets me know that it came from your show, right?
Yep.
So we know what we talked about. On there, just ask a few questions: name, email address, phone number, a couple questions about what was it that Mark and Kirk were talking about that caused you to want to reach out. We want to answer your questions. So one of my schedulers, I have like 10 of them, will call you and get you on our calendar where we're going to ask you questions about what do you want to protect? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your aspirations that you're not reaching that we can help you with, right? So then you get on with one of our advisors and we just start taking care of business, reallocating, getting you out of the path of the hurricane so you can get to safe ground, right? Because this economy is rough, like we just talked about. Option number 2, just give us a phone call. If you don't want to fill out the form, no problem. Give us a phone call, 720-605-3900. Just say Dr. Mark said to give you a call. And then same process after that. You'll get on with myself or one of my advisors, and we'll go over all of that information with you to put a smile on your face in light of a collapsing economic time that we're living in. Here's what I want to leave people with, though. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing goes down forever. Nothing goes up forever, right? But if we can navigate through these trends with wisdom and courage and boldness and discernment and act, you can navigate through it with success, and that will put a smile on your face.
This is not something that is a Mark idea and a Michelle idea. This is a God idea. This thing right here has a 2-year shelf life. When we think about the problems we have in America with our food supply, what are we going to eat? What are we going to do? Stock up on something that's going to help you. This is organic pea protein, greens and reds, fibers, and multivitamins and minerals. It will stay good for 2 years. How many have wondered what you're going to eat if things go south? Kingdom fuel right here. Big government, big medicine and big food and big church. Let me explain myself. Big government. If you're out there depending on the government to feed you, clothe you, and finance you, you're in bondage. If you're out there depending on big pharma to bring healing into your life, you're in bondage. If you're depending on the government to supply food for you that's been genetically modified and subsidized to kill you, you're in bondage.
Thank you for staying with us here on Furthermore. We're so excited as we continue to help you break the bondages off your life. And that last segment with Kirk Elliott, feel free to visit his website at kirkelliottphd.com/Sherwood and find out more information how you can break free of that hold on your life. Now, remember how we have been talking about those 3 big prisons, big church, big government, big food, and drug. How does that have a hold of your life?
Oh my gosh, those things are truly prisons, aren't they, sweetheart?
They certainly can be if we're living life unconscious.
Yeah, and most people are going through life and don't realize you're in prison. So when you think about this, we're going to like take a little bit closer look at this idea of big food and drug. And man, this is an area that people are truly, truly suffering in immensely right now because they're addicted to the foods that we just talked about in that little commercial reel about things that are absolutely destroying your life. And when I'm talking about these foods that you're seeing in the center end caps of your supermarket, these things, it's kind of funny, but it's not funny because we gravitate on those things because they're all for sale. Well, guess what? Your health is for sale and it's being sold to the highest bidder, which is big food and big drug. These foods make us sick. They make us so sick that we have no way out but to take big drugs, sweetheart.
Well, that is really what the television would like for you to believe, is that we're absolutely medication dependent. On every commercial, there's another drug. And before you know it, you are headed down to the next fast food restaurant to substantiate your craving, instead of what we should really be doing is learning to take care of this temple in a long-term, self-sustaining, healthy way.
There's no question. We really believe that the greatest pandemic of all was the creation and subsequent addiction to the standard American diet/lifestyle. We in America started that. We profited on that. And you and me became potential targets to become sick people so that some people could profit on that sickness. And America's suffering because of us.
Isn't that the perfect marriage?
Well, that's like a marriage made in hell, isn't it? You know, like I look at the Food and Drug Administration and think, what do they have in common? You know, Hippocrates, did he say, let drugs be thy medicine, or what did he say?
He said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food.
Oh my gosh.
So therefore, the most important medical decision that you make every single day is at the end of your fork. We call it fork curls. So if you're paying attention to those fork curls, you're either providing health for yourself or not. You're either giving yourself health or giving yourself disease. So it takes a conscious decision to really evaluate what you're eating every single day.
So rather than being addicted to drugs, we need to be addicted to healthy food. The body has craving for those things. Did you know that? The body wants to have what it needs to survive. Hunger is not telling us to go eat a donut. Hunger is telling us to go supply what is needed for our bodies to survive. It's amazing. God put medicine in food and food in medicine. Go figure, you know, it's one and the same. And it's interesting how people have gravitated away from the natural resources we have that are on this earth. And it's very sad to me. They have forgotten those. They sort of bought into this idea of convenience, this idea of quick, fast satisfaction. And they've all, as a nation, we've gravitated toward this thing we shouldn't do instead of what we should do. And folks, we can change this. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in bondage to big food and big drugs.
No, I always tell patients, or when we have the conversation, it's like, if you find yourself reaching for a drug or you find yourself reaching for that next quick fix, ask yourself a few questions. Do I really need this? If the answer is yes, do I need this right now? If the answer is yes, ask the question why. Oftentimes you'll find out that, it's a habit. It's you're bored. You're tired. It's time to take a nap. You really need to sleep and rest because you're overstressed and underrested, or you're chewing on something, no pun intended. You're massaging something in your brain and you're reaching for something to chew between your teeth to satisfy something that is not necessarily food or drug.
When I look at this, I'm thinking, and we struggle with this all day, every day, seeing people mightily addicted like handcuffs into this thing called bondage to food and drug. And I have to ask people all the time. I think about this as an illustration. When I was on the power team, I used to allow people to handcuff me with Smith & Wesson handcuffs and begin to strain and pull with all of my might to break those handcuffs. Did it hurt? Yes. Was it hard? Yes. Did I want to quit sometimes? Yes. Did I fail sometimes? Unfortunately, yes. But I learned not to fail. I learned to win. I learned to beat that. I learned to break out those handcuffs. I learned to have the guts, the drive, the belief that I didn't have to live in handcuffs. And I am asking you, we're asking you to have the guts to believe that you can break out of the handcuffs of big food and drug, because it will lead you right down the pathway towards hastening your death and shortening this thing called life. It will lead you down a pathway of increasing your sick span and decreasing your lifespan. And folks, that's not what we want to be about. Hence, we have created this show called FurtherMore, because we want people to know how to take their life further and do more.
That's right. We want to give people hope. We want to provide them ways to travel down a healing journey, health, and freedom, breaking free from all of the bondages that can control and take over your life, and you don't even know that it might be there.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and we can't wait to be with you next time, because we're going to cover this really cool subject. What about these clots? What's causing these clots? Is it the vaccines? Is it not the vaccines? Other things? What's going on? We did our own investigation, and we'll show you what our investigation revealed next time on FurtherMore. For my wife and I, we are so grateful you took the time to join us today.
I'm Dr. Michelle.
I'm Dr. Mark. We'll see you next time
on
FurtherMore.
And I suffered a tragedy, both physically and emotionally, that took me down. While I was in training for the Olympics, my mother lost her job. And I wanted to go to the Olympics so bad that I stayed behind as they moved back north so that I could pursue my career in martial arts. And I literally lived in my car homeless for 365 days before I could afford a roof over my own head.
Wow. Just wow. Sweetheart. Get choked up. That's your story.
Well, it can choke one up, or you can choose to go a little further.